Hi everyone, and welcome to the week three of our Cairo Bootcamp. So today, okay, let me highlight what happened last week. Last week we had country cousin talk about introduction to Cairo, writing your first Cairo program, data types, a lot of stuff, which now resulted to you guys doing the tackling challenges and all, and a lot of people looking at the assignment from a lot of people have solved them, which is nice. And then tomorrow we'll have Cyndie. Cyndie was the week one tutor. She will talk about Starknet smart contracts. She'll talk about Cairo program versus Starknet contracts, and as well give a good insight on how to deploy a simple storage contract. So she's going to give a very, just like she always does in all her classes, so she's going to give a very deep dive into all this. So Cyndie, you have the floor right now.
Yes, okay. Hi everyone. How is everyone doing? I don't know, is everyone as tired as I am? How is before we continue, how is the experience has been like for the past 2 weeks? I just want to see how guys are doing as I share my screen. Yeah, okay. Everything is okay. I don't know if guys are tired as I am. I'm just feeling so tired. Oof. Okay, let me see. Okay, entire screen. Okay, I'm screen recording. Yep, action. Okay, GM. Welcome to week three. Like I said, let me just see to the charts. How is everyone doing? Oh, okay. So how is everyone doing? For those who don't know me, my name is Cyndie Kamau, and this week we'll be going through building smart contracts. So just a quick recap. The first week we did fundamentals of blockchain, an introduction to Starknet, and then week two you did like an intro to Cairo. And so for this week we will be doing an intro to smart contracts, right? So okay, that's me. Yeah. So for today's agenda, actually, I didn't want to bombard you guys with a lot of information, so I narrowed it down to the fundamentals. So first of all, we will go through like a quick recap of, okay, a quick review on how the difference between Cairo, which you were doing last week, to now smart contracts. So smart contracts has a bit of a different interface, as you're going to see. We're also going to go through an anatomy of a smart contract, of which, as usual, I've created an analogy. So we'll go through a story. And then most of our time here, we will do a live session, right? So by the end of today, I hope you guys, first of all, can be able to at least grasp the fundamental principles behind the anatomy of a smart contract. And also, we are going to deploy two smart contracts actually, and you will interact with them. So you can also see the flow of how you deploy and interact and build a smart contract, right? Okay, so those are the two major points I could say that I want at least you guys to understand. And also, yeah, we'll just have fun, obviously. Okay, so just a quick, before I continue, actually, let me just give you guys a quick rundown on what we're going to do. So, you guys will forgive me. I actually was making a website, but because I was doing a lot of things, I wasn't able to deploy it to Vercel yet. So I'll deploy it and then I'll share it with you guys tonight. So in the meantime, you'll forgive me, it's still on localhost, but as we continue learning, I've made some bit of reference material that we're going to go through. The whole point of making this the website is that after you continue even tomorrow before we get to the next class on Thursday, you can go through all the things that I've written here, and then you can, it's a playground, right? So you can just go through it, reinforce everything that we learned today, etc. And by the time we get to Thursday and we get to the more advanced concepts, at least the fundamentals, you've had a bit of time to be able to like go through it. So I'll share the link tonight. It's just left, the only process left is finishing up some pages and sharing live page. So I'll share it with you guys. So that's what I wanted to do. And then also we'll go through the faucet and also stack scan once we start interacting with our smart contract. But otherwise, let's continue. Okay. Okay. So what is the difference between Cairo and smart contracts? Like when you've done like the stack links challenges and also as you were learning about Cairo last week, when you start seeing how a smart contract will look like, of which you'll see it in a live afterwards, the one major difference between a general Cairo program, if you remember what we said, Cairo was designed to be like a multi-purpose language, just like how you have JavaScript, Solidity, Rust. But then now, when it comes to writing a smart contract now in Cairo, there's some certain aspects which are you won't find them in the general way that you write a Cairo program, right? So the first step is, so as you've written a Cairo program, obviously you've had like a main function. And obviously, when you try to like compile a Cairo program without a main function, the compiler complains, right? But when you come to see smart contracts, of which you'll see afterwards, you'll see that it doesn't have a main function per se, but there are some several entry points of which you're going to go through step by step, right? The next thing is, like I said, Cairo was designed to be a general purpose program, but it was designed to create a proof, right? So what do I mean by that? When you like write a Cairo program and then you compile it, etc., you can actually go use an open source prover. It's called STW or something, and then you can create a proof of it. So that's how people generate proofs for like a general purpose program that you've written in Cairo, right? But then when it comes to smart contracts, the goal is not really to have general purpose provable programs per se, but the goal is just to produce programs that are specific for Starknet. Okay, so you can be able to run it through the Starknet operating system, right? So that's another point of aspect that it's a difference between Cairo and smart contracts in general. Okay, so like I said, because Cairo is a general purpose program, I mean language, you can be able to like build programs outside of Starknet. So it doesn't have to be specific to Starknet. You can just create general programs, okay? But with the way you write a smart contract, it's exclusive for the Starknet network, okay? So main function, smart contracts don't have a main function. So the goal is to produce just general purpose provable programs, but the goal is to produce programs that run within the Starknet ecosystem. And then you can create provable programs outside of Starknet. Like I said, if you have like a general Cairo program that you've written, you can use the open source provers, which are there, and you can go create a proof, right? It's called stu. Let me just write it here. Um, There was it's like if I'm not wrong, it's like an advancement of the stone prover or something. So you can go check it out, okay? And then finally, most Cairo programs are normally run by the Cairo virtual machine, but you'll see also in the website where I've tried to like make like a visual description. Mostly when you write a Starknet contract, it's now processed by the sequencer, right? So do you guys remember the time when we were talking about the architecture of sequencer, where we started with the mempool, and then the sequencer, and then the prover, and then the verifier, right? So when you write a Starknet smart contract, it's like a transaction. So it's now processed by the sequencer so that you can be able to interact with the smart contract. Okay, so those are some of the four main points as you go to see as you continue the difference between the general Cairo programs and then the smart contract. Okay. All right, so now back to the fun side of things. So, anatomy of a smart contract, right? So, I want you guys to imagine you have some money for those of us who still haven't built our own house, right? So you've gotten some money, you're like, okay, yay, let's now build, I want to now build my own house, right? So what are the steps which you involve by the time you decide I want to like build my own house to building it, right? And how do they relate to the anatomy of a smart contract in Cairo? So let's go through that. All right. So what happens? Of course, the first thing is you look for money, you find it, right? And then the next step is I want to build a house. So you go buy pieces of land, you get a title deed, etc. All that is sorted. So here we are assuming you already have the title deed of the place you want to build, and you have money from the construction materials, etc. Right? So the first step, obviously, it will be approaching an architect, because maybe you have this vision of your house, you put like some several Pinterest boards, etc. So now you have a way that you want your house to be designed, right? So if you have several ways, okay, you just have a design you have in your mind, right? So the first step is you'll go to an architect because this is their work. So you go and tell them your vision, and then they sketch a blueprint for you, right? So once the architect sketches the blueprint for your house, the next step is now the construction workers, and of which the construction workers will now use this blueprint as a reference material so that they can be able to build the house essentially based on the blueprint of your which was the architect designed, right? So that is the first step. We said you start with an architect, and then the next step, he or she generates a blueprint, which we will use in construction. And then the next step is the construction workers will use this blueprint to build your house. And then finally, yeah, the house is done. You start putting things into your house, right? Moving in, essentially. So how does this relate to smart contracts? Let's still continue to part two of the story. Okay. So now we're now at the second stage. Remember, the first stage we said that people have, we have already built the house. So the next step is now moving in, right? So of course the house is empty. You now start adding furniture. You add some closets. You start bringing in all your things in boxes, etc., etc. And then you start adding your personal items, right? So if it's clothes, if it's shoes, all your documents, cutlery, spices, and all those things, cooking materials in the kitchen TC, right? But one thing, example on my end, right? I sometimes I forget a lot where I put things. No, imagine you're in a new house, so you're not just used to like the architecture of the house, right? So you're very forgetful. So to help you be able to navigate your new apartment, you decide to label the drawers. So if you have like let's say a drawer in the kitchen, and then you decide okay cabinets, right? So if you have cabinets in the kitchen, you decide to label them. Okay, this cabinet is for pans, this cabinet is for pots, this cabinet is for plates, spoons, cutlery. You see, this cabinet is for spices and any other cooking materials, all these other things, right? And then when you get to like whether it is your bedroom or if you have like a storage unit, you have labeled everywhere where you have put, for example, if it's extra clothes, extra shoes, and also documents and all these other things. The whole aspect of labeling is that you don't forget where you put things as you continue to, be reacquainted with the house, right? So you label everything in your apartment. So now at least you don't have to worry where you kept something because you've been able to label them and you can be able to attain them easily, right? So now that's stage two of our story. Stage one, remember we started with the architect, we built the house. Stage two, yeah, we've been able to move in. Okay. So now stage three is the house is done, you've moved in. The next step is you want like a housewarming party. Okay. So you invite friends to come into your house, and then you just want to host them, right? Housewarming. But then if you're not used to housewarming, let's just assume this is your first time to host people in this new apartment. Okay. Obviously you're going to be a bit nervous because in your mind is like, what if I cook food and then more people show up and the food is less, right? What if I don't have enough plates? I don't have enough cups. I don't have enough spoons to be able to sort all these people out. So obviously there's that nervousness that comes when you're hosting people, right? So you decide, okay, let me just do this very simply. Let me just have a guest book, okay? So what is the purpose of this guest book? So if, let's say John comes in at, let's say 10, 11 a.m., so you write down, okay, guest number one, John, arrived at 10 a.m., right? And then the second guest, let's say Mary, came in and let's say at 10:30, and then you write it down. Mary came in at 10:30. So the whole aspect is as you keep on recording all the people who are coming in your new apartment, at least you can start having a picture of example how many people who you invited will be able to come to your housewarming party, and then you start planning earlier on. Do I have enough plates? how much food am I going to cook, etc, etc. So the guests come in, everything is fun, they're just chilling out, they brought gifts. I hope you guys are guests who bring gifts to people's houses, but yeah, they've brought gifts, right? But now it's time to eat. So let's say it's 2 p.m. Okay. So you take the guest book, because let's say there's some guests who are coming in and then they have to dash somewhere and then they leave, etc, etc, and you've recorded that. Okay. So you get your guest book and then you count how many people at this point in time at 2 p.m. How many people do I have in my house? So if I have like 7, 8, 9 people, I can be able to whip up, let's say nine plates, and then I can be able to serve 9 people, right? If I have 10 people, I can be able to serve 10 people, etc, etc. You get the gist, right? So the whole purpose of this guest book is just to be able to help you at least figure out at which point in time how many people do I have, so that you can be able to sort everyone out, so that you don't have a scenario where you have many people, but then the food is less, because as a host, it can be embarrassing. You feel me? So let's go back before we connect to smart contracts. Let's just remember the storyline. First of all, you started with you have money and then you want to build a house. So we started with the architect. So you went to the architect drew blueprints for your house. The constructors came and they built your house up, and then the house is okay, and then you start moving in, right? That's the second stage. And then the second stage, we decided we are moving in, right? So you put furniture, you put drawers, closets, etc. But then, since you want to figure out as quickly as possible, where did I put this? Where did I put that? You decide to put labels, okay? So you're like, okay, this closet has 5 drawers. So let me label drawer 1, documents, drawer 2, extra clothes, drawer 3, extra beddings, drawer 4, etc, etc, right? So you label everything so that you can be able to quickly navigate and know where you kept things, okay? And then you settled in. The third aspect is now, the third stage is the housewarming party, whereby you decided to keep a guest book so that you can be able to maintain how many people at any point in time are coming in and enter and leaving your house, so that when it comes to serving food, you just check your guest book, and then you're able to serve appropriately. Okay. So before I continue to now, we now connect this with the logic and the anatomy behind smart contracts. Let me just quickly check and see I haven't lost anyone. So I think is there anyone who has any questions regarding that cycle? You guys, I hope we're all on the same page. Okay, but then again, let me reinforce. We started with architect, then we went to constructors, then we built the house, then you moved in, you put labels on everything, and then you get guests, and then you have a guest book. Okay, so that's the storyline per se of our housewarming party and building your house. Okay, so how does this relate to smart contracts per se? So first of all, let's start with the blueprints of the house, of which I'll show you guys what I mean by interface implementation. So when we start going through here the smart contract, I'll be back to this analogy so that you can be able to see it real time. Okay. So the first step we said is the architect designs the blueprints of your house. So that's something we call a smart contracts interface, of which you're going to see in real time. What does interface mean per se? It's like you're just showing a blueprint of your smart contract. What functions have you written in your smart contract? So that even when other smart contracts are interacting with the smart contract, at least they have an idea. What does the smart contract logic in your smart contract have? Okay. So just like how an architect will design a blueprint, which will be used by construction workers, the whole point of the interface is to just give a guide. This is what I have in my smart contract. These are the functions I've written in my smart contract. Okay, so that even other smart contracts which are let's say interacting with the smart contract, at least they have an idea on how they can interact with the smart contract. Okay, next. Now, workers take this blueprint and then they build the house. Okay, this is just how workers, like I said, you can look at it both ways. You can look at it at, let's say, now we're implementing the functions we listed at our interface, the blueprints, right? We are implementing them in our smart contract. So it's implementation, okay? And also, at least for the other smart contracts which are interacting with our smart contract, they can get an idea what sort of functions are in there, okay? And then now, obviously, you'll add furniture, you'll add everything into your house. That's now the storage model, because we're now storing some sort of values in our smart contract state. Okay, so when we start adding in furniture when we're moving in, that's now the storage model, of which today we are going to focus a lot on the storage model because it's very important understanding how the storage model works in Starknet, because you can't write like a smart contract without the storage model. Just like how you can't build a house and you don't have things inside. Are you going to like live in an empty house, you know? So we're going to go through the storage model so you can understand and at least try to visualize how the model works in Starknet, okay? Now, remember, we add labels on drawers and shelves. The reason why I said the storage model, it's because I'll show you guys what I mean by base address and offset logic. So let's say you've written, let's say I want to store the value X in my smart contract, okay? And we've deployed it. So the way it works behind the scenes is this, it's not like you're going to like directly store the value X onto the state. There's a way you like hash, and then that hash, because I'll just show you guys how the storage model works so that I don't confuse you guys. But essentially, it's just this address. If I have like a pointer and I want it to access my value of X, how do I access the value that I've stored in my smart contract? Okay, that's what we call like a base address and offset logic, of which I'll explain later on what that means. Okay, now adding a guest book at the door so that we can be able to record how many people are coming in and leaving out. That's now storage, which is dynamic. What do I mean? Let's say at this point in time, I'm adding another number to the smart contract. Or if we, let's say we design a smart contract whereby we are adding two values, okay? Let's say A and B. So, and you want the resulting sum to be stored in the state of Starknet, okay? So you can see the state is it's very dynamic, it's changing, right? Because if I give, let's say, my smart contract 5 and 10, and I want it to store that sum, it will still need to be updated to the state. Okay, so it will be 15, and then I give it another command, right? Okay, now I want you to give me the sum of, let's say, 6 and 7. It will still be updated to the state. Okay, so it's just how the storage is dynamic, because our guest book, we are writing how many people are entering, how many people are leaving. Okay, so it's just storage that is able to record dynamic state. Okay. So when the whole process, when we are recording guests in our guest book, okay, imagine the guest book is the state, right? Or our storage. Every time we are adding in a new person, we are writing onto the storage, right? So that's the whole purpose of why we have the guest book in the first place. So that anytime someone comes in, we write it down, right? Every time someone else comes in, we write it down. So that's writing to storage, okay? And then finally, when we check the guest book at 2 p.m. so that we can be able to see how many guests we have, that's reading. It's like querying, okay, how many people do I have at 2 p.m.? So we go query our state, which is our guest book. We're like, okay, right now we have 7 people. So it will return, right now we have 7 people. So that's just reading from storage. Okay. So let me just repeat that again. So we say blueprint, it's the interface. And then when the workers build the house, that's just implementing the functions you mentioned in the interface of your smart contract. Okay. That's just implementing the whole logic. And then when we add furniture, drawers, etc., that's now the whole act of storing things inside of our smart contract, right? And then when we add labels, it's just how a Starknet in itself, it's able to locate a certain value when you query it, okay? Which you're going to see later on, something we call base address and offset logic, okay? And then when we have a guest book at the door, this is just the whole act of how we can be able to record storage when we keep on updating the state, right? And then when we record the guests at the guest book, that's just writing to storage. And then when we check the guest book at 2 p.m., that's now reading from storage. With that, let me just quickly take a break. Let me see if you have any questions before we continue. I think you can start now. Yeah, have I lost anyone so far? Yeah, so before we continue, you can just quickly say, okay, yeah, you're good, so that we can continue. Nice. Okay, good. Nice. Okay, so I haven't lost anyone. Nice. Nice. Okay. So just before I continue. Okay, nice. So let's now look at a smart contract just generally. Okay, so don't worry too much about the interface. We're going to go through it slowly by slowly. I mean the syntax. Sorry, we're going to go through it slowly by slowly. The whole point is for now, I want you to see the major foundational aspects of a smart contract. Okay, so like I said here, the first step is the Starknet interface. Oh, let me just go back. The first step is the Starknet interface. What we said is the blueprint of the architect. So here you're just saying what sort of functions do I have in my smart contract? Okay, that's now the blueprint that you're going to be able to use to be able to write out the logic of your smart contract. Okay, so it's the blueprint of the house. Now here, as you can see, there's this attribute here which is called storage. Okay, here this is now just imagine how we were moving things into the house. That's now the aspect which caters to storing things in the smart contract in the persistent storage of Starknet, okay, using the smart contract. So this is the whole aspect of storage. So remember, every time, of course, we'll have like some more advanced things you can write into your smart contract, but mostly these are the three principles. So you'll need a Starknet interface, which is the blueprint. And also, this Starknet contract is just to say, here's the beginning of my smart contract, okay? And then we have storage, which is very essential because you can't have a smart contract without storage. So it's very essential. It's an aspect that you can't forget when you're like writing a smart contract, okay? And then now here, when you see this impl, that is the implementation I was talking about when now you're writing out the logic of the functions which you wrote here. Okay, and just a quick see when you see this ABI embed version 0, that's just to show that the functions you're writing are going to be public. Okay, but we're going to go through that later on. So I'll explain properly all these attributes over here, what they mean, okay? But for now, I want you guys to remember we have the interface, which is the blueprint by the architect. We have the storage, which is the furniture which we were talking about being stored in the house. And then after from ABI embed version 0 to the implementation here, this is now the construction workers who are building out the house based on the blueprint, which is the interface, right? So you're just writing down the logic. So this simple smart contract here, its whole work is just we are storing this data. You see this stored data unsigned integer 128, okay? So we're just storing a value, okay? And then now, function set, function get. You can see here what I was talking about, writing to the blockchain, reading to the blockchain, okay? So this is what I was talking about in terms of the guest book. So when I have my guest book and I'm writing down all the people as they enter into my house, this is what we call writing. And this is a function which is, you just use it. It's called write. Okay. And then when I want to know at a certain point in time, what sort of values, let's say I have stored in the blockchain, I want to query and see the state of the blockchain, I'll just use the read. Just like how we have our guest book and you're reading out all the guests who are in your house at a certain point in time. Okay. So before I continue, there's something else we can see here. Remember, set we said it's for writing to the blockchain. Okay. Get we said it's for reading into the blockchain. So as you can see, there are two different things we talk about here. This T contract state is just the contract, it's just the state of your smart contract. Okay. So as you can see here, function set, we have ref cell T contract state XU128. You need this ref here. What is the point of it? It's just like you're granting permission to this function here set to have the ability to write, because you can't just write like that. You say you decide to like update the state of your smart contract just like that, you have to like explicitly tell Cairo that this function here, function set, it is exclusively for writing other values, updating the state of the blockchain. Okay, so that's why we have ref cell T contract state XU128. But then if we're just reading, that's why we have this at here. Okay, it's like taking a snapshot, right? So it's like you're screenshotting At 2 p.m., I had 7 guests in my house. Okay. So once you write self at T contract state, as you can see, you're just telling Cairo, this function here, it's only allowed to read. It can't write anything to the blockchain. It's only allowed to read. So that's why we have self at T contract state. Okay, we're just reading the state of our smart contract. Okay, but when we have ref self, we're just writing to our smart contract. Okay, so let me just see if I've lost anyone. Okay. Yes. So you can forget, of course, you can forget the syntax, you can forget everything else. But when you're designing your smart contract, always remember, just like how you're building a house, you need an interface, which is a blueprint of your smart contract, right? And then once you start writing your smart contract, you need to explicitly tell Cairo, so this is where my smart contract is starting. Okay. So we have the module simple storage. This is just the name of the smart contract. Okay. So once you start, you tell your Cairo that I've started writing the smart contract. The next step is you need storage. And I'll explain storage pointer, read access, storage pointer, write access just in a few. So let's just continue. That don't worry about that. So like I said, just remember the three things to writing a very simple smart contract, okay? So you first of all need the Starknet interface, which I said is a blueprint of the house. Then you need the Starknet contract, which is just explicitly telling Cairo, I've started writing my smart contract, okay? Otherwise, if you don't write the Starknet contract attribute, Cairo won't know that you're writing a smart contract, okay? And then you need storage to be able to to be able to store the state, to be able to store things in the persistent. Okay, we call it persistent storage, but we just need storage. Just like how we've said, you need furniture in your house. You can't stay in like an empty house. Okay. And then finally, the implementation aspect of it, you can't just write a blueprint here and you haven't implemented it. Okay, just like how you can have a blueprint of a house, but you need the construction workers to be able to build it. Otherwise, it's just a blueprint. Okay, so those are the three main things that you can always remember when you're like designing your own smart contract. We have the interface, we have the contract, we have the storage, and then we have the implementation. Okay, let me see. Oh, it's more of Rust, actually. Yeah, so like we had talked about earlier on, if you remember, we said like Cairo Zero looked more of like a Python, the syntax, right? But then when we now have the newer versions of Cairo, it's more of how Rust looks like. So even when you're like writing attributes in Rust, example, this Starknet interface, you write it the same way. So even when you start writing Cairo right now, when you decide sometime back to go and do what to go and read Rust, it might actually be easier to like get some of the syntax functionalities because you have the background of Cairo. Okay, but then again, I have to specify that Cairo is a standalone program. While having a background in Rust is okay, but Cairo is a standalone program, so once you start learning from it here and you understand the concept behind the design of Cairo and how it works and how to write smart contracts, at least you can be able to move forward with it. It's not like a must you use Rust. Okay. Okay. Still a C conversation. Oh, okay. My God, what is happening? Something. Oh, okay. Ah, I can't see it. Let me just use here. I hope you guys can see. Yeah, so this is just another explanation to reinforce what we talked about. So like I said, this is the blueprint, okay? And then this is just what we talk about a trait. It's just you're like giving the functionalities of what your smart contract functions will look like, okay? And then this is what I said is the state of the contract, okay? Like I said here, when we have this ref, this just means that you're modifying the state of the blockchain. Okay, that's why you need this ref here. Otherwise, if you remove it, it doesn't, you can't like write to the blockchain, okay? And why do we have this X U128? As you can see in our smart contract, it's okay, we've said we are storing data, but it's not like we've specified which sort of data we are storing it. So this X is like a placeholder, so that by the time you're interacting with your smart contract, you can be able to see how it comes in, because as you can see, we are writing the value here. Okay, so like I said, when you're writing something, you need to tell Cairo exactly what are you writing. Otherwise, if you just say that, okay, yeah, writing I'm writing to the blockchain. So what are you writing? You know, that's why we have it here exclusively. Was it XU28? That's why we have it here. It's just to specify that I'm writing a certain value. It's not like we're hard coding it here. We're going to now interact and add the actual value that we want to write when you start interacting with the smart contract, of which you're going to see after on. Okay, so this is where the Starknet contract starts. And then, like I said, storage is something which is very important. So this value here, this placeholder, it's what we're going to store in this data structure here, the stored data. Okay, and then we now have our implementation, of which we say function set. We refer back to the contract state because we're going to be updating it. And then we're like, just update for me in my contract state, update for me the fact that I want to add a value here. So when we interact with our smart contract and we tell it, okay, I want to store the number 10. So this function here will be triggered, right? So it will be like, okay, let's go back to our contract state and then we add the value 10, right? That's why we are referring here to the contract state, okay? So we just like, by self, we mean the contract state, okay? Just write for me the value that we write here, okay? And forget, we get back to the contract state as you can, we get back to the contract state and then we are like, I want you to read for me the data that we wrote, the value that we stored on the blockchain, okay? But we'll do like a more like we'll do like 2 more smart contracts today, and then we will deploy them so that you can be able to like can be able to reinforce what we learn about. Okay, but like I will say again, you can forget everything else. Just you can even forget the syntax, etc. That's something you can always refer back to the Cairo book. Okay, but just don't forget when you're designing your smart contract, it needs a Starknet interface. It needs a Starknet contract attribute to tell it that, you know what, I've started writing my smart contract. And then storage, it needs a storage because like we said, you can't have an empty house. So your smart contract needs you need to like have a storage model of it. Okay. And finally, implementation. You can have the blueprints, but if you don't build the house, your contract is as well as, okay, it's just a blueprint, right? So you also need the implementation of it. So again, don't forget those things. Don't forget the interface, contract, storage, and implementation. And of which I've said here, this is just this is just saying that the functions which I implement here, they're supposed to be public. And by public means anyone or any other smart contract can come in and interact with these two smart contracts, okay? And as we get to the more advanced concepts of smart contracts, we're going to go through the public and the private and the external functions, okay? So this one here, it's specific for the implementation. When you have like another smart contract, I don't know if you can write it down here, and you want to like, let's say, make it still public, and it's not under the implementation, or it's not the functions that you wrote, the main functions that you wrote in your interface, you use something we call, there's this attribute. Let me just quickly write it here. But this is something else you will see later on. So just wanted to share it out there. Or whatever. Yeah, so you'll see when you see this set of attribute, it's just, let's say you have extra functions that you want to write in your smart contract and you want them to be public, meaning anyone can interact with them, but they're not part of our blueprint. Okay, so this is the attribute you use. But as I said, when we go through like the more advanced concepts of smart contracts, we're going to go through that. Okay, so before we continue to that, let's now go back to our website. Where's our website? Yes. Like I said, don't worry. Actually wanted to finish this site earlier on, and then we share it so that I can share with you guys, so we can all play around with it. But I'm so sorry, guys. So I'll release the live version of it tonight. Let's say before tomorrow, and then you can go through it. And we'll still use this site on Thursday, so we'll still go through it. Okay, by then it will be live. So you see, it's still work in progress. But let's continue. So now we get to to the fun side of things. So we'll go through like a smart contract, and then we do what we deploy it, we interact with it, and then I'll tell you guys about a simple storage section, and then we can continue. Okay, let's start this lesson. First of all, I hope you guys can see, and also before we continue, let me see if we have any questions. Yeah, like I said, okay, so the asterisk, if I can talk more about it, it's more of dereferencing, but I don't want to go back to dereferencing right now. But what you've said, it's true. The at it's a snapshot. It's a snapshot. Let me see. Let me go back to that code. It's not a must to like dereference it. Mostly it depends with like the logic you're writing. So sometimes let me see, by Thursday I'll check and see if I can come up with a more concrete a code where we can be able to like I can show you guys how dereferencing works. But otherwise for this one, because it's just a simple smart contract, it's like not a must you dereference it. Okay. Okay, so we just start new. Start a new. Okay, let me just make a new text directory. Now, what should I call it? Let me first see all the. Now, what should I call it? Okay, let me just. Okay, let me just make another directory. Let's call it simple storage. Oh, let me just also do this. Hmm. Hmm. I don't know why my screen is not like it's not zooming in. So I hope you guys can see. But I'm just creating like a directory, nothing much. Okay, so we have like the simple storage. Okay. Okay, so normally when you're writing a normal Cairo programs, you can just use Cairo test because it's just essentially designed for general purpose Cairo programs. Okay, but then when you're writing smart contracts, the best is Starknet Foundry because it's at least it's designed it's set up in the environment where you can easily write your smart contract, you write the tests for it, you use the tests and then you deploy it. So we'll just use Starknet Foundry. Okay. In the meantime, before we continue, there's something I want you guys to do. So, did I use alchemy or? Yes. So I want you guys to come here. I hope I haven't signed in because my API key will be like a will be seen. I think I've signed in. So I want you guys to come to Alchemy. If you haven't created an account, you can create it very quickly. So I hope guys are following through. So it will be like more hands-on so that we can be able to do what you can be able to see. So I want you guys to come to Alchemy because it's very important. And you go to, okay, let me just come here. Okay, get your API. You haven't signed in. Get your API key. I'll still need to sign up. Ooh, shoo, 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 shoo. Yep. Yeah, I think my API key will be visible if I share it. So let me just quickly stop sharing my screen so I can create like a new dummy account. So give me a second, guys. Yeah, so in the meantime, I hope you guys are also following through with me. I want you guys to come see. Let me just sign out. Okay, let me just sign out. Sign in again. Let me just, what can I use that? It's a dummy. Okay, let me just sign in. Okay, so I think I've already used my phone number, so it's going to be it's going to be just okay. So as we continue, I just want to confirm, have you guys been able to create like an account successfully to Alchemy, or you're still in the process? Kindly just share quickly in the chat so I can be able to know. Okay, but in the meantime, if you okay, done, still on it, okay, done, account created, nice. Okay, so let me just give you guys like just 2 minutes, and then we can continue. Account created, nice. So you'll come to see where it's important. So as you create your account, I want you guys to come to the. Now that means I'll have to show my API key. I don't know if you guys are bad people because okay, I want you guys to come here specifically to when you're creating your first app. You'll come here to the networks. Here to the networks. I want you guys to come to Starknet. And then instead of mainnet, check Sepolia. And then you copy this URL. It will be the endpoint that we'll be using to deploy and interact our smart contract with. So essentially, the whole purpose of this endpoint is that's where we will be deploying and interacting with our smart contract. So as you write your smart contract, you'll need this URL a lot. Okay, let me see. Okay. Yes, so I want you guys to come here. Okay, of course, we're in version 0.8, so and just copy this. Okay. So before we start writing our smart contract, we can be able to configure our foundry. Okay, let's continue. So Now we have, oh, that means I hope you guys have created you can create a new project with Scab just very fast, just a new smart contract. And then you check Starknet Foundry because we will come and configure it here. Let me see if I've lost anyone. Okay. So before we start writing our smart contract, right, we'll need to configure our environment, just like how you configure hard hat, etc., so that we can be able to work on it. Okay, so if we are where we are at, I want you guys to write this. Let me just share that command in the chat. Oh, can you share it in the chat here? You can write that, and then oh, so for this URL here, you'll just write this URL that you have using your API key, which you can see over here, right? So you just copy it. Already it has the API key set, and just paste it here, right? Like that. And then account. Just write portfolio. Something like that. So so yep. Yeah, so Starknet Foundry, it's also for testing. That's something which you'll learn some time later on. So today we won't focus on tests, but as you can see, here's like an example of a test um, program for the default program that we have here. Actually, this is actually a default storage program. So I hope we are everyone is here. Okay, so as you can see, this is like the default implementation. It's just like how you can have like a default hello world, right? And then when you now test your contract, this is where like the tests come in. So if you want to like if you want to like test, of which you can see, okay, let me just close this. Yeah, so you do something like so this is just how you test you. That's why Starknet Foundry is nice. So once you have like the once you've set your environment when you are like creating tab new, and then you tell it you want the Starknet Foundry environment setup, it's able to create the setup for you. So when you're like testing your smart contract, if you've written it out, use SNForge test. But the main command which we'll be using today is something called sncast. Yeah. So this is sncast. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll write down we can write down the smart contract, and then because of the interests of time, because I really want you guys to be able to see how to you deploy a smart contract and you interact with it, I'll share it in the chat, and then you can be able to like paste it or something, so that we don't Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, I think country cousin has got that. Has got it. So okay. Okay. So okay. So let's first go through the let's try and come up with like a concrete image of what I want to do. So for this smart contract, essentially what I just want is we'll have let's say we'll have what? We'll have two numbers. Let's just say we have two numbers, A and B. So I'll just create a very simple smart contract. I want a smart contract that adds A and B. Okay. But most importantly, remember we talked about storage, right? So the one question which would come to my mind right now when I'm designing my smart contract is, do I want to store? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of chats. Please show how you retrieved. Okay, okay, all right. I think we can continue in the meantime. So let's think about the design of our smart contract. Okay, so do I want to store A and B in my storage? That's the first question I would ask myself when I'm designing a smart contract from scratch. Okay, do I want to store A and B in my storage? Or question two, do I want to just store the sum? So if question one, I mean if one, let me just try to, if one, my storage will only have the sum. If two, my storage will have the sum A and B. I think we're set over there, right? So that's the first step, okay? So the next step is in my blueprint for the smart contract, what functions do I want to have? That's another question I'd ask myself when I'm designing the smart contract, okay? So we're doing the sum of A and B. So of course, the first function would be right? And then the next function would be the next function would be what? The next function would be reading the sum. And that's it. I think we've designed our smart contract. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of chats. So yes, yes, yes. In fact, actually, what we're going to do is that's why I was talking about this website of mine. Okay, so we have this. I've written down like some sample smart contracts, and then as we write that, we'll be able to like you see, I have like just a very simple storage .cairo. This one I just got it from the Cairo book, but then I've also implemented other smart contracts. Okay, so once we have this, we just come to the next step, and at least I have written like some templates. I haven't finished writing out all the commands, but essentially this is just to help you out for reference. Okay, so this is just when you're testing, and then here is where we'll get to like I'll show you guys the procedure of like creating creating an account and deploying it and interacting with the smart contract. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I've written everything here. So actually we'll be using this and then I'll share it with you guys for reference. Okay, so we're still here in we're still here in step one, but we're not writing this smart contract per se. It's just a very simple smart contract. So let's say, okay. So, okay. So I just want to go with, I'll go with number one. I just want to store. Okay, so with that, I think we can start. Like I said, we start with the blueprint, right? And of which we've written it here. So we start with the Starknet interface. Okay. So what functions do we have? The two functions that we're talking about. The first function that we talked about is I want to have the sum. Where's the function? I want to have the sum of A and B. So let's iterate sum of A, B. Now remember what I talked about, right? Wait, let me see. Have I forgotten something? No. So, like I said, because we are writing, oh yes, oh my God. Okay. Well, I'll add that when I start writing the smart contract. Let's first just write the sum. Okay. So what have I said? I want the sum of A and B. And let's say A will be filled 252. Don't worry, I'll write what is missing. So, but essentially that is the first function we talked about, right? And then the next function is get, okay, let's write read the sum, read the sum, right? And here we say the self okay, so there's something that's missing here. Let me show you guys what's missing. There's this trait that's missing, but I'll show you guys. Let's first write the smart contract. So we give it a name and then we come back here and we write this, okay? So let's first write the smart contract. Okay, so what do we want to call our smart contract? Let's say we want to call it mod sum. Sum. I think we can just call it sum. Sum contract or something. So once we have that, I can now be able to write what's missing. So you can actually like write, let me show you guys something. So you can see I've written some contract interface, but when you come back here, you can actually write an I. So you can just do both. So you can either write that way, and then we pass in on the contact set like that. And then we put this here. Okay, that's good. So like I said, you have two ways. You can like just the smart contract interface this is just syntactical sugar, something we call syntactical sugar. So it's just to show that you're writing the interface of the smart contract, but also you can just put an I here. Yeah. And also, what does this thing mean? This is just like the contract set, it's just like to show like it's a trait, okay? So we start writing our smart contract. So as you can see here, already I'm having an error because it's saying plugging diagnostic contracts must define a storage struct. So like I was saying, when you're writing your smart contract, once you start writing your smart contract, storage is something that you can't lack. Okay, so that's like let's first write it storage. Okay, and then we use a data structure. We say struct And then we have our sum, of which is 12 to 52. Yep. As you can see that the compiler has stopped like complaining. Okay, that's why I was telling you guys, storage is very important when you writing your smart contract. Okay, yeah. Now, one more thing. Yep. So before I continue, let me just copy paste this so that we go quickly and you can be able to see where is our chat. Yeah, so like I said, this website of mine, it's still on localhost, if you can see here, right? So for today, you just bear with me. It's still on localhost, but I'll be able to deploy it tonight after the class. It's just that I didn't manage to get time to finish up on all I wanted to show and deploy it. And so once I'm able to deploy it, I'll share like the link. I'll make sure to share it before tomorrow so that you can have the whole day to be able to be able to do what? To be able to walk around, play around with it and also reference. Okay. So you'll find I've added so many things in the website, even all the commands that we are going to use today to be able to deploy our smart contract successfully and interact with it. Okay. As you're going to see. Right. So I'm sorry, guys, it's still on localhost, but I'll be able to share the live link once it's done. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, it's just a placeholder. Yes, yes, yes. I've added it. Yeah, so when we go to like the more advanced storage aspects, as you can see here, it's just this is like let's just call it like the default way of how you store something. You use the data structure, okay? So this is very simple. This is a very simple value we are storing, okay? You're going to see sometimes, let's say when you have very complex structures. Starknet store. Have I written it well? Yes. So let's say when you have very complex structures, let's say you like on Thursday, we're going to create a bookstore smart contract. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys. So let's say you have like another struct and you're like, okay, struct book. And then let's say publish date. So let's just do field 252. And then author. Uh, You can do it. Let me just try and put a string or something. Yes, so you can just type not found. I'll have to implement. There's some things I'll have to some things I have to do. What I'll have to import. I've forgotten the importing message for that. So let's just not use a string. Let's say you have some data that you like you want to do what you want to some very complex data, right? And then here we say books. Something like that. So I'll show you guys how you can be able to nest very complex data structures inside and introduce some of these things like Starknet store. Okay, so let me just quickly remove this. In the meantime, today is just a very simple implementation. So let's get back here. What was I using? I'll save some. Okay, so before I want to show you guys what I was talking about this. So before we use it, I want us to continue writing the logic and then you'll see where it comes in. Okay. So after we've done that, we now come to Hmm. So here's where we start implementing, right? So we're implementing. Have I written that correctly? Yes. Let me just show you guys something before. So there's something here. Let me just tell you guys another way of writing it. So as you can see, we have this super simple storage contract state. You're just importing this, right? But if you want, you can actually, that's I was getting confused. You can actually write it here. Mhm. Yes, so we are good. As you can see already, I've imported the interface that we're talking about, the trait, right? So we're going to implement it. That's why you can see here, not all trait items are implemented. Missing some of AB, read some. So that's where we're going. Okay, we start writing our function, the first function. Function. Um, ah, so mhm, there's something I'm missing. No, let's continue. Okay, I think I've forgotten how I implemented it. Yeah, so I'll show you guys. Ah, yeah, what am I doing? Yeah, for this one, I need a constructor. Oh my God, guys, I've actually forgotten how I implemented this. So let's just let me just change something. Why is my brain not working today? Yeah, let me just change something. Okay, sorry guys, my mind has refused working today. So I've just quickly changed the what's it called? The logic. I'll share the code with you guys when I remember it. So let's just do a very simple smart contract, okay? So we get the value and then we read the value. Okay, so let's see. Mm. Oh my God. I don't know why all of a sudden it's like I'm blank. Really, let me just go back and remember the. Why are we writing this way? Okay, let me just share this. Yeah, let's just go with this simply. Today my mind is just confused. So, um, this is just a very simple smart contract, okay? So, we get value, we read value. There's another one I had written just in case we don't have time, so that I can show you guys constructors. So I'll go through it also with you guys. But the whole aspect was we have this smart contract here, okay? Again, I'm sorry guys, I don't know why today. Yeah, we could. Okay, so I've shared the code so you can just paste it in your if I talk, I say I'm not lost, then I'm not what? Okay, are you lost? Yeah, don't worry, don't worry. This thing's it's trial and error, okay? So just don't think about the syntax too much. Just remember what I said. We first start with the interface, and then the contract, and then the storage, and then when you want your function to be public, right? And then we implement the logic for that. We'll go through this also on Thursday. Okay, so I'll reinforce this again. For now, I just wanted you guys, at least by today, you understand how we are able to deploy a smart contract and we interact with it. Okay, so with that, let me just look for those steps. So the first step, like you've seen I've written here, is scab build. So let's build our smart contract. So the build profile is done. Okay, so as you can see here, I wanted to show you guys something. So if you remember, we had previously talked about Sierra. Like you can see, we have several artifacts which are already generated when you build your product, okay? I mean, when you build a smart contract. So just wanted to show you guys, when you remember when we said when you like compiling a smart contract, before it even gets to like the machine code, it has that intermediary, which we call Sierra, right? So that's just Sierra. I just wanted to show you guys. Uh, okay, the meantime, we can continue. Okay, so we've built our smart contract, okay? Just copy, paste this, and don't forget is it called? Don't forget this because it will help us when we are setting up, when we start interacting, when we start deploying a smart contract, okay? So once we build our smart contract, the next step is let's create an account. So you see how example when you like let's say when you have like example MetaMask and you want to like interact with your logic etc, you've written your front end etc. So what happens in when we're deploying a smart contract, okay, we need to create an account. Just like how we say you need to create like MetaMask, okay, but this account essentially it's for paying, example, the gas fees, which will be needed to be able to deploy your account. So the first step here is we create a Starknet account wallet. Okay, so that you can be able to use it to like deploy your smart contract. So the first step is let's look for that code. This is test. Yes. So here, let me just copy it. And then because I've used, okay, on my end, it will be like, let me just share it with you guys here in the chat. So this hello account, it's just an account, you're calling it hello account, okay? On my end, I have it, so let me just use. Mhm. Oh my God. Today it's just errors. Let me see what I've done wrong. Sendcast profile. Oh, did I? Either RPC URL or network must be provided, but I have the URL. Ah, okay, yes, I've seen my way. Let me just look for the correct. Let me look for the correct. Let me look for the correct command. So here you can see it's bringing an error. Either RPC URL or network must be provided. So I've forgotten to actually use that. So let me just look for the right command. I don't know if it will be here. Why is it not working? Hmm. That command again. Yes. Okay. So normally when especially when it's the first time, like deploying a smart contract, you get so many errors. So as you can see here, for some reason, my RPC URL, which I've put in my Starknet Foundry, it's not picking. So I've just had to use an account which I had created earlier on. So this hello account here, right? So let's just continue. So the first step is I've created an account, okay? But since already my account is deployed, I wanted you guys to see when it says deployed false. But let me see if I had put it in the, yeah, let's just use this. As you can see here, it says deployed false, okay? So we've created an account, but it's not yet deployed. So deployment is the next step actually. So let me just, of course, you'll see that it will bring an error, obviously. Yeah, yes. Deployment failed. Contract already deployed. So my contract is already deployed, so that's no biggie. But I just wanted you guys to see how once you start with this, um, yeah, once you start with this command here, sncast profile, Sepolia, account create, the name of the account you want to create, okay? And then the next step is you deploy. Let me show you guys. Where's that command? Yeah. So let me just share it also. If you're also having the same errors as I'm having, it would be nice if you can also share it. Yeah, so that's the next step. Okay. But then also in your free time, you can also go through this again and then okay. So once I've been able to deploy the account, which I'll be using it for let me just which I'll be using it to deploy the smart contract. Okay. The next step is taking that wallet address which we have been given. Let me go back to that command again. Yes. Example, I have two accounts actually. Oh, and why was it bringing an error and it's actually deployed? Okay. Yeah, actually, let's just use this. I hadn't seen it. So that's weird. So I got an error, but actually I've been able to like create an account. So I have three accounts instead of two. Okay, so let's actually deploy it. Okay, resource bounds, exit balance zero. Okay, let me just give it some tokens. Where's the address? So here's where we go to the Starknet faucet. Yeah, and then let me take Stack or let me just take some Stack. Okay, let's clear this. Let's see if it will work. Okay, we're good to go. So the reason why I was getting an error earlier, it's because I had not like funded my wallet. So my address was created, yes, but it didn't have any test tokens so that it can be able to pay the gas fees. That's why I was getting that error. If we had gone through the error, I could have shown you the error is just simply saying the balance is like below zero something. Okay, so I have these 2 points here. So if I want to make my account, which I've created global default, this will mean that once you create an account, you can use it to even deploy other smart contracts. There's no need to always create an account all the time. Okay. But for just log purposes, I'll just create for a default for like my directory, my local directory in my computer where I have my projects. Okay. So I'll just make it like that. Okay. So as you can see, command account deploy. We've been able to deploy the contract. I mean the account contract, okay? The wallet. Okay, let me just call it the wallet. We've been able to deploy it, so at least we can use it, right? So once I've deployed this, the next step is let's go to step 3. Oh, yeah, get test tokens. Yes, I deployed account. Okay, we just go to this command. Yes. Now we need to declare our smart contract. Okay, it's like we're announcing there's a new smart contract we've created so that we can be able to get something we call a class hash of it so that we can be able to deploy it. So it's like you're just saying Starknet, hey, I have this new smart contract. I have created it. Please create for me like a unique hash, which I can be able to get it to deploy the smart contract. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. So let me just copy add it here. And then I paste. So our account is called hello account 2. And then let me go back to the command. Declare. Yes. So the name of our contract called store value contract. Okay, so this is what we wanted, the class hash. Okay, so this is what we're going to now use when we are deploying this smart contract. Okay, so we come here and then yeah, let me just see. I haven't forgotten anything. Yeah, we're good. Yep. And we've deployed our smart contract. So let me just share these commands again. Yes, I was also getting this error. So actually, can you just check with this? Can you just check with this command? Because sometimes there's like there's some endpoint issues. So I want you to use this command, and then you see if you can be able to see something. Yeah, but in the meantime, have I lost anyone? So this is just how you deploy your smart contract. Okay, so there's another way of which we can use it on Thursday. There's another command interface we call Stackly. So it's written Stackly. So it's written this way. Where can I write it? Stackly. So you have two ways. You can actually use Stackly, but for me, I find the simpler one. It's just using a sncast, which is provided by Starknet Foundry. Okay, so let me just quickly share these commands here. Just a second. Just a second. I'll give you an yep, yeah. So if you want to see the deployed smart contract, of course, we can just come here. And here we go. This just shows our contract address here, the class hash, its balance of which we haven't uh, not seeing any. Okay. If balance of which it's like 0 is, and then it's deployed by this contract address, and then it's deployed at this transaction hash. So this is just more information about this is just more information about your smart contract. So of course we don't have any transactions. We haven't written an event yet, so we'll write it later on. We don't have any account calls so far. Of course, we don't have like a portfolio. And then this is just when you want to see like the Sierra bytecode, etc. And then here, this is now the read. Okay. Token transfers, NFT events, storage slots. This is just more information about this is just more information about our smart contract. So to be able to interact with it, let's just clear all these things. Let's come here to where's my site? Okay, let's just go one function. Read. B. Yep. As you can see, there's nothing stored. That's why it's saying it's 0. So by default, where's our stored value? Yeah, our stored value is 0. Okay, so as you can see, it's just 0. So if we want to invoke, let me see if I can invoke. And then I put like 4. Let's see if it will work. Oh, not working. Hmm. Let me go back to this contract and see where we went wrong. So as you can see, I think there's some issue with the logic because we can only read. As you can see, it's not rendering the get value, right? Let me see where it went wrong. That's why if I try to like add a store, if I try to like add, let's say 4, and then we try again, we read and we see what's happening, it's not working. So we just go back and see where I went wrong. Could it be that? But yeah, essentially that's how you interact with your smart contract. Okay, so if you want to like, let's say, read something, you have this call here where you just reading the state of your smart contract, okay? But if you want to add something, example, invoke, that's where you can, because we have this value here. Let me show you guys the value again. We have this value A, right? That's why I was writing a placeholder here, this 4. It represents that A, okay? So what would have happened essentially is it will be able to like update the state, and then we call it again, and then we could have seen the response like this. Okay, so yeah, today things have decided to go wrong. Yeah, it's not there actually. Ah, yeah. Oh my God. Okay, okay, yeah. But essentially, I have to connect a wallet. I don't want to connect a wallet. But essentially here it is actually. So I wanted to show you guys how to interact with it from the CLI, but I think there's something I'm doing wrong. Let me just go back to the commands and see. Ah, oh my God, I forgot something. Set values. That's why it's not working. Oh, what am I doing wrong today? Yep, it's worked finally, finally, finally. So as you can see, I've been able successfully to store my value 4 into our function get value. So I had forgotten to put this placeholder here for call data. So when we go back again and we call, yep, there we go. We've been able to successfully update the 4. Yeah. So again, I've said I'll I'll finish on the site. It will have all these other things. It will be very interactive, and then I'll share it tonight. So it's still on my local host, so I still need to finish it. But yeah, because of time, I haven't been able. I wanted us to deploy two smart contracts, but because of time, we haven't been able to. But I think we can. I'll share that contract logic where I had written a constructor so that you can see the difference. And then, yeah, you can just go back here and I'll have added so many things and it will help you out. So one thing I wanted to share is, you remember when we were writing, right? But this is now a more of syscalls, of which is a bit more advanced. But I've put like two things on what's happening behind the scenes. So if you write, let's say 5 plus 7, and the syscall is called, and then the value is updated called 12. But if you just read, it will just read the sum, and the value is 0. So it has so many things I've taken part writing it. So yeah, I'll share it. But otherwise, because of time, just a quick recap again what I was talking about. Um, okay. Yeah, so you can forget everything else actually that I've talked about. We've gone through a lot of things today, and but what I want you guys to just remember is the three major things that I talked about in the smart contract that you can't lack: the Starknet interface, the Starknet contract, the storage, and then implementation. So in the next class, I will first of all by reinforcing this again. So we'll do this again, and then I'll show you guys something we call a constructor and how it's used. We'll also go through several types of functions. And then what else? Something else, then we'll bookstore. So we'll have like an implementation of a bit more complex smart contract, which I'll try to put as many features as possible so that we'll break it down step by step. And then we go through this again. And then because of time, I wanted to show you guys how storage works behind the scenes, but we were not able to. But I'll show you guys in the next class. Yeah. But otherwise, I think we can stop here for today. Any questions? Where is this thing? Where is my Zoom? Yeah. How do I get the Sequoia API from Alchemy? So I think I'll just have to use my, let me just show you again. So let's start from scratch. Okay, let me just sign out. So of course, I've already created an account. So I'll just sign in. But the first step essentially is for you to sign up. Okay, so you can either sign up with Google, or can you put your first name, last name, email, password, and then you sign up. And then most importantly, I think it's to avoid maybe bots creating a lot of accounts. You have to like sign up. You have to register with your phone number. So you'll input your phone number, and then you'll get an SMS that will be able to verify that at least it's a human being who's creating the account. Okay. Once you have that, um, let me see if I've already logged in. Okay. First thing is, of course, I have my first app, okay, which I've been using it. The next app would be, let's say, I don't know, let's say we want to do what? Let's say front end, something, DeFi. Next, choose the chains. So we look for Starknet, right? So I just want Starknet for this one. So So as you can see, we have this URL over here. I have this API key, which I'm given, okay? So you can either choose the mainnet or Sepolia, of which, because we're in the testnet, we're using Sepolia, right? As you can see now, I have this URL. This is now
I,
what I will copy.
Cindy,
Hi, yes?
you're not sharing your screen.
Oh my, oh no, oh my God. How comes? Okay, let me start again. I thought I was sharing my screen. Let me just sign out. Okay, like I said, I have already created an account. Okay, so I'll just quickly sign in. But essentially, what I was talking about is you'll sign up and then you'll verify using your phone number. Okay, and then we come to apps. Okay, I was creating this one. So let me just create another one, front end two. And then we'll just leave it at DeFi. Starknet. So because we're just using Starknet, of course, you can use this endpoint based on the network that you want, but since we're using Starknet, just come here, okay? Webhooks, Node API, let's just continue. Yeah, so this is what I was saying. So when you're deploying a smart contract into the mainnet, of course, you're going to use this endpoint here, right? Because it's in the mainnet. But since we're using the Sepolia testnet, as you can see, it's changed. Okay, so there's no point of you copying this API key because it's a general API key. So based on the network you're using, you're going to be using, it's going to like create a URL for you. Okay, so this is what we're using, the copy. And if you want to confirm that your endpoint is working correctly, example, they have a method here, right? Starknet block number, get the latest block. So you can actually copy this and then you can just come, let's just create a new terminal for this. As you can see, right? It's saying so far we have 788,895 blocks. So this confirms to me that at least my endpoint is working correctly. So you just copy it and then you come to IO Darknet Foundry where we had this okay, this just yeah, we have this sense cast from .sepolia. Okay, so this is now where you input your URL. And then you write account Sepolia. That's why when we were writing the commands which I used to deploy your smart contract, that's why I was writing here profile Sepolia and then account, the account I want to create, etc. But essentially that's how you get the URL key from Alchemy. Yeah. Do we have any other question? Yeah, yeah, I'll share the link. Yeah, but otherwise I think I'm good. Yeah. Sarah?
Okay, thank you so much, Cyndie, for that session. It's so amazing. So, guys, I want to believe you do not have further questions for Cyndie before we close the call today. Um, Other questions. So, aside from questions from this class, I think I got some feedback about people having like duplicates of their names on the leaderboard. So if you have like any issues, maybe you can't find your name on the leaderboard, you can just, okay, let me just unmute everyone so you can speak.